On this week's episode, we go over some of Thailand's strange and unusual laws, regulations, and social cues that you have probably never heard about.
So if you don't want to get arrested, at least not on accident, you'll definitely want to listen to this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who followed a friend to Thailand in 2001, and when he went back home, I just kind of didn't.
And I am Evo Terra, an American expat living full-time in Bangkok since the beginning of 2016. Holy crap, that's almost been 2 years. Thanks for joining us here in the Big Mango.
So right away, a very quick thank you to our patrons who help support the show.
Woo-hoo.
Now, for more information on how you can do that, head to patreon.com/Bangkok Podcast to find out how you can get bonus content, early access, and awesome swag.
Yes, and thank you in advance.
So before we jump into it, let's talk a little bit about our podcasters meetup, which was last night.
Yeah, last night by the time of this recording.
We're recording one night after, right?
It will be a day or two before it goes out. But yes, we had a lovely time. Thanks to everyone who came out. Lots of listeners of ours came out and other shows as well. And it was nice to get to know the listening audience from here in Krung Thep. Plenty of Phalang. So if you didn't come out, shame on you.
Yeah, it was really fun. Some super interesting people. Like everyone had a really cool story, interesting life, traveling around the world. Funny, nice, awesome people. That's good to know who our fans are.
Yes, yeah, fans of ours, fans of others, and shows you what's happening here in Bangkok. So I'm sure we will do it again. So stay tuned, and we will talk more about the next time we plan having a meetup, which probably will happen after the first of the year, I would imagine, because it's December, and December's not a good time to do things.
No, not in Thailand. Everyone's on holidays. Also want to have a quick mention and thanks to Scott from TalkTravelAsia.com and Tam from PathfindersPodcast.com. They were also there last night, and they added their voice to the debate and the discussion on podcasts and other cool topics. So it was great to have everyone there. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And also, next time I go to Smalls, I'm going to bring my DSLR camera. And it's a beautiful place. Just inside, it's all these like deep, rich reds and blue felt velvet colors with candles, and that's a gorgeous little place.
Did you see any of the pictures that our listener Guy from New York, who's now also in Bangkok, did you see some of the pictures he took?
Yeah, the purple tinged pictures. I felt a little bit like Prince singing Purple Rain.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Were you?
Yeah, I totally was. Yeah, he had, I think you had the best one where your little finger point back to the camera. So
I really enjoyed how my double chin jumped out on that picture. That was really nice.
You went right to the flaws. I went to how awesome you looked, and you said, "Look at me, I'm an idiot."
That's self-depreciating humor for you.
You are deprecating like there's none I know, my friend.
If I wasn't so awesome, it would actually make me feel bad. So on this episode of the show, we've collected a random list of strange Thai, I don't know what to call them, laws, regulations, limitations, rules, things that exist, or at least used to exist, that sort of exemplify what a unique and interesting culture Thailand has.
Yeah, and every country, every city, every county has weird laws that are never enforced. They're just things that are leftovers on the books from when, slavery was okay or something like that.
Right.
But that's not what we want to talk about, because those aren't any fun. I mean, they're kind of funny, but they're not all that fun to what's happening in real life. So what we did instead is we had our intrepid researcher, his name was Greg.
Yeah.
He went and dug into the best of his ability how these laws are actually on the books today. Now keep in mind that reading legal text sucks in any language. Now, imagine doing that when you kind of know the Thai letters, but you don't necessarily know all of the Thai words. Yeah. So that's the reality of this one. It's quite likely that some of these laws might have a rather nuanced approach that we can't, or Greg could not discern from the text that he wrote. But nonetheless, these are all active, or at least relatively recently active laws on the books that we think are kind of funny and a little interesting and odd. And it shows one more special angle of life in Bangkok that hopefully none of us run afoul of.
Yeah. And like you said, I tried to research these to the best of my ability, but I couldn't find like definite yeses or nos, but each of these are things that I've heard or have been told by people who are very knowledgeable about Thailand and who have been here a long time. and it's what they've experienced. So it's a slight bit of hearsay. A lot of them I've heard from multiple sources. So if you know that any of these are not true or are not as I say them, then that's all my fault. I take full responsibility for that. But I thought it'd be fun to talk about some of them because some of them are really, really weird.
I will be playing the role of bullshit caller on some of these, so we'll see how it goes. You want to begin, my friend?
All right. Well, let's first start with a softball one. This is, of course, the very commonly known rule that you're only able to buy alcohol in Thailand between the hours of 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. to midnight. Mm-hmm. Outside of those hours, you can't be served alcohol at any restaurant. Well, any restaurant or store that's on the books, anyway.
Well, you can be. Let me just change that. You can be served alcohol at a restaurant. You cannot buy takeaway alcohol at a convenience store or at a grocery store. Yeah, but you can definitely go have a beer at 2:30 in the afternoon at your local pub. That's
You're
okay.
right. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right. That shows how little I get out to drink these days.
That is
I don't
true.
even know how the rule works.
Right, because you're stuck in traffic driving. If you miss that, you should listen to the bonus episode, which Greg talked about his horrible drive and his
I wish I had a beer.
Fancy car. So yeah, and that is a true law that is enforced, and that's the one that I think trips up almost every new person to Bangkok.
Yeah, when they go into 7-Eleven and they go to buy a beer and they see that the door for the section of the cooler that has the beer has a giant cardboard flap over it, preventing you from getting any drinks out.
Cardboard flap. I've seen them chained. Yeah, some they're not chained, and you just walk up to the front and they just look at you like, "Are you new?" Because my machine won't even let me ring this thing up. So yes.
Like, oh God, now I got to talk to the stupid foreigner who doesn't understand anything. But that's a fairly common law. Most people who are slightly familiar with Thailand know that one. Yeah. So it's not that's just kind of getting us into the thing here. The next one I have listed down, something that a friend told me. Apparently, you cannot buy chainsaws in Thailand with a blade that's longer than 15 inches.
You said that, and that was one of the first ones I thought, well, what does this actually mean? So I went and I did a little bit of research.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And there is actually a law on the books that is I found this called the Thailand Electrical Saw Act of 2002 that has all sorts of regulations, but clearly it's more than just that because it's not what I was talking about. I couldn't find reference to the 15 inch. Inch is weird because this is Thailand and they don't think about things in inches. It'd be much more like centimeters. But regardless, I did a little bit more research and I found out this law actually makes sense. Because it's not about how long your chainsaw should or should not be for stupid reasons. This has to do with the anti-logging, the anti-illegal logging that Thailand has been cracking down on in the last decades that have gone past. So the idea here is that gigantic chainsaws will cut down teak trees, which will land your ass in jail for a very, very long time in this country. So that's what the law was enacted to prevent, was illegal logging.
Yeah, I can believe it because teak wood can go for some pretty serious coin on the black market. And illegal teak logging used to be a big problem. Now it's very, very tightly restricted and it's somewhat less of a problem. But I was talking to a friend who told me this, and he said that what a lot of people do is they just buy a chainsaw with a 10-inch blade and then just go and buy a 15-inch blade somewhere else and put it on the chainsaw. Like
sure.
That. But
yeah, you can do that. And by the way, do you know this? When you buy a chainsaw, if you go to the local Home Pro? Is that the Home Depot here? Yeah. If you do buy a chainsaw, you have to register it. You get a license.
Really?
Yeah. And again, that all goes back to logging. They want to know who has these in the event that they see, Samchai bought a chainsaw and he lives somewhere in northern Isan, and then suddenly his 40 rai plot is now devoid of trees. And what if there's a correlation there? So that's their general idea. I can't argue that law. That sounds good. Sounds like an okay idea to me.
Right. There's also actually, you know what? I'm not going to even make that joke.
I can tell a story about my dad who tried to cut his leg off with a chainsaw.
On purpose?
Well, no. He was up trimming a tree. This is Dad's the great white hunter, and was doing some work out on the farm and using a chainsaw to trim a limb off of a tree that he was up in, and went to twist to get a different angle, and Dad forgot about the conservation of momentum, and the torque took over, the gyroscopic forces took over, and the chainsaw wanted to stay in the position that it was in, and cut right through probably a good 6-inch long and 4-inch deep gash, down to the bone on his thigh.
Yikes.
That was fun. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Jeez, if only he had a blade that was shorter than 15 inches, this never would have happened.
Saved the problem.
Now, the next thing I put in here, I wasn't able to find any direct hard evidence of this. And this is a friend who told me this a few years ago, and he was getting his pilot's license in Thailand. And apparently he said that foreigners either cannot fly or cannot learn to fly a helicopter in Thailand. And I looked online quickly about this, and I couldn't find any definitive answer, but all I could find was a mention about from a story a few years ago about a Thai pilots union were upset at the suggestion that foreigners be allowed to fly helicopters.
Right.
So I don't know how it goes, but it just strikes me as one of those things. It's like, it's strange enough that you can understand, like they want to protect this sort of semi niche market of a particular industry. I could totally see it happening.
Yeah, I would definitely fall on the unique side because I think I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen a helicopter in flight in Bangkok in the 2 years I've been here. So they are not a common scene.
No.
News organizations do not have helicopters.
No, yeah, you're right. When you see one going over, you're like, wow, that's got to be a VIP or
Right.
something going on, some big time security or something like that.
Yeah. And also, I can't imagine anybody would say, I'm going to go to Thailand so I can get my helicopter pilot's license. Not high on the list of places you want to learn to fly chopper. Don't think so.
Although I bet Bangkok is pretty awesome looking from a helicopter.
I can only imagine it is. So yeah, the chopper is probably lovely from that high up, but
most things are lovely from 10,000 feet.
Exactly right.
Now, the next one I want to talk about, this one is definitely a law, and it's sort of about the Thai military. Now, Ivo, do you know much about how Thailand's military works?
I only know that I tried to buy beer at 2:15 p.m. one time, and a lady wouldn't sell it to me until I promised her that I was not a member of the Thai military. That's it.
Well, apparently, the way Thailand's military works, well, when you reach 21 years old, you're called to your local, I don't know what it is, enlistment office or district office, and you have to basically line up with everyone and reach into a bowl and pick out a card. And if you pick a black card, you're free to go. Off you go, enjoy the rest of your life. If you pick a red card, you're in the military.
Wow.
That's how it works.
Wow.
And yeah, so, and I've read stories over the years of people who have had very unfavorable reactions to picking a red card and learning that the next few years of their lives will be all about guns and running at dawn and shooting and things like that.
Man.
So that's an interesting way to do it. Now in Canada, the same as US, it's a voluntary service, right? Like,
yeah, you don't have to sign up for the military, but in America, as soon as you turn 18, you do have to register for the selective service. We haven't had the draft in America since Vietnam, but we still are requiring our young men. We don't do it to women yet, but the young men at 18 must register for selective service in the event that a draft is called.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes.
And the countries, I have a friend who's from Israel, and of course, everyone there has to join the military for a few
compulsory
years.
Service. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Thailand's sort of in the middle between those. It's like everyone has to take part in the lottery, and you may or you may not.
And everyone in Thailand loves the lottery, so they figured why not.
That's right. So the next thing I was talk about is Thai names, and there's some really interesting characteristics of Thai names. The first of all, did you know that I only found this out recently? It was only in 1913 that Thais were required by law to have a last name. 1913, that's just over 100 years. And before that, they went by first name or nickname, and that was it. Mm-hmm. So I imagine it would be very confusing because there's only so many tips and moos and gongs and nungs that you can sprinkle around a million people. So
right.
Another interesting thing about Thai names is only one family can use the same last name. So if two people have the same last name, they're somehow related, however distant that is. So that's very strictly controlled by the government.
Yeah.
Another thing is that Thai last names can't use more than 10 Thai consonants in total. So you can't have like 11 consonants, which is good because they're already pretty long and complicated with only 10.
They're already 74, so my goodness. Yeah.
And the last thing that always confused me is that a lot of Thais change their name randomly for good luck based on a reading they got from a tarot reader or a fortune teller or something like that. I used to work with a girl who came in one day, and I said her name is Mamiao. I said, "Hey, Mamiao," and she's like, "No, that's not my name anymore. I changed it." I was like, "What are you talking about? You just changed your name. Like, who does that?" And it's happened several times.
Now, these are legal name changes?
Legal name changes, they go and register at the office, and I'm assuming it's a well-oiled process, or at least as well-oiled as things can get in Thailand.
Well, I read up on that well-oiled process. When you mentioned this to me about the last name thing, first I didn't believe you. So I went and looked it up, and everything you've said thus far is true. I couldn't verify the number of consonants in a name, but I'm going to give you that one, right? But what I found out is there is a process for changing your name, and I wasn't exactly sure why, but now it makes sense. People change the name for bad luck or for whatever reasons. But when you go to change your name, it's not a matter of going down and saying, yes, my name is now Samchai Jones. No, that isn't it. Because there can only be one family that has the name, right?
Right.
You mentioned before, because of the Surname Act of 1913. So they go and do research to find out whether or not you have that name, whether or not that name is used by anyone else, or if it's too similar to another name. So when you go in, you give 5 possible choices. You give them 5 choices.
Really?
In which, and obviously in order of preference. And if your first one is not available, they go to your second, and on down the list until number 5 is reached.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, because how could you do the research and find out what all the names are that are in the country?
Oh, the whole language is built around subtle tones that confuse foreigners. So if you say like beautiful wrong, you're calling someone cursed, but suddenly they get all uppity about choosing the wrong name when you go to change your name.
The other funny thing I figured out about this names issue is now I understand why. Okay, let me ask you this question, Greg. I believe you went to school when you were in Canada, right? You weren't like some homeschooled on the prairie kid thing, right? You guys had schools in Canada, yes?
Yes. Once I finished my Moose Rangers course, I went to the Beaver Elementary School.
Wanted to make sure. Do you remember? Did you have a favorite or at least a memorable teacher?
Very memorable teacher, Mr. Richmond.
Okay, and I believe his last name was Richmond. His name wasn't Richmond Howell, right?
Right.
His name was something Richmond.
Right.
When you were teaching in Thailand, what did the kids call you?
Mr. Geg.
They called you Mr. First Name.
That's right, Mr. Greg.
And Sheila is Miss Sheila. Of course, that's not the way it is back in the States. And that whole thing is because the way Thais identify themselves is not with their surname, but with their given name. So that's where the Mr. and Mrs., the family name is just of that family, right? It's not Mr. Hood, it's Robin of the Hood, right? So that's the way this works. It's not, so when that makes sense now, like, I get it. Yeah, because the last name isn't, I mean, it's important because it shows lineage, but that doesn't identify the person. The person is identified by the first name.
Oh, interesting. Mr. Geg. Also, I'm going to make a Thai comic book with a character called Somchai Jones. It sounds pretty badass.
I think he would kick some major ass.
Totally. So let me talk about the bane of my existence in Thailand, bank books, or as they're called here, book banks. Now, these are the stupid little things that that they gave you when you opened your first bank account when you were 14 years old and you felt like a grown-up. You know, these books that you put in the automatic teller machines and it goes bzz, 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 and it updates your account balance. These things in Thailand are treated almost like passports, and I don't know why, because they're useless. Mine is in the bottom of a drawer somewhere. I literally haven't taken it out since I opened my bank account 16 years ago. But I did lose one once, and I found out when you lose one, you need to go down to the police station and file a police report. And you have to go back to the bank and say, I lost my book. Here's the police report. Here's 200 baht. Can I have a new book bank? And they give you a new one, which is stupid. And I don't know why, and no one's been able to tell me why.
No. And again, like as is custom, you mentioned this. I said, that's bullcrap. And went and did a little research. And all you got to do is type in,
as is custom.
Lost Bank Book, Lost Book Bank Thailand, and you will see blog post after social media update that are days old that somebody has done this exact same thing. Lost, went to the bank, and they said, go file a police report. And that's the way. They can't do anything. Once that thing has been lost, It is as if you have lost your passport. It is if your identity is completely wrapped up in that little book. And
Yeah.
you got to get it again. So yeah, I bow to the reality that Google has 11 million results on Lost Bank Book Thailand. So there you go.
Oh, you don't believe me firsthand, but you believe Google?
You
Who are you going
bet.
to trust more?
Hey, I believe in the wisdom of the crowds.
You want to have some fun? Next time you go into a bank and have to talk to a teller and they ask for your book bank, just say, even if it's not true, just say, "Oh, I lost it," and just watch the panic come over their face because they know they're going to have to explain to you what comes next. So this one, I definitely know used to be true. I'm not sure if the laws have changed since then, but back in the day in Thailand, I used to work in the film biz somewhat. And at all times when I was working on set, there needed to be a representative from the Thai Film Board on set at all times to monitor the filming and make sure you're not doing anything inappropriate, illegal, or otherwise nasty and naughty.
This one doesn't surprise me at all. This makes sense. I worked in. I didn't know work in motion pictures, but I worked in moving, like audio-visual type stuff when I was back in the States. And we would go travel around the country and set up these big projectors and screens and put on our presentations for 3-4 days. And in union-controlled states, we had to have on set, behind the scenes, next to the projectors, from the time that we turned it on to the time we turned it off, so like 3 hours of presentation, a projectionist.
Oh, really?
Then this guy just sat there because he didn't know how to work this equipment. You know, this was all customized stuff that we had designed and built. So there's no way he knew what the hell to do. But union said, if you are putting a picture on a screen in a hotel, it has to have a union projectionist has to be there. So that makes sense.
When I was in film school, we were doing something and something started going beep, and we were not allowed to figure out how to turn it off. We had to go get the guy, the switcher. He's like in the other building across the campus. Someone had to go and run and get him, and we weren't allowed to touch any of the equipment we were on because it was all operated by a real film, like working film professionals.
Socialists.
Very silly. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me this because when you think of things like Anna and the King is illegal here. So they do control the film industry pretty tightly.
And they're pretty interested about how the country is portrayed. They want to make sure it's got a foot forward. I wonder how that works for all of the porn that comes out of Thailand.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen anything like that.
I mean, I'm assuming there's porn in Thailand. I'm just guessing.
So on the topic of jobs, a lot of people might also know this. This is quite well known, but there are a list of jobs that foreigners are forbidden to do in Thailand.
Podcasting. Well, if it was a job, it probably would be forbidden, but since it's not, we're okay.
Here we are. But there is a list of things that you're just not allowed to do. Now, I went to a fairly reputable legal website and took this list from that. But I got to say, a lot of this doesn't make sense to me. So let's go through them here. So the jobs that foreigners are forbidden to do, this is not a complete list. This is most of them, but not all of them. Things like agriculture, animal husbandry, forestry, or fishery, with some exceptions for specialized knowledge.
Sure, right. If a fire prevention specialist working in forestry, they want you to be here. But if you are milking a goat, they would like that to be done by a local person.
Right. Bricklaying, carpentry, construction work, which I don't get at all because half of the buildings built in Bangkok are built by Burmese and Laotian people.
Exactly. I don't think I've seen a Thai person swing a hammer. I'm relatively certain they're all Burmese.
Now, I'm not sure if when they say are forbidden for a foreigner, if that excludes like maybe ASEAN countries who have a special work transfer law or something like that. I'm not sure if foreigners applies to like non-Asian foreigner. Like, I don't know how it works, but that seems a little bit hinky to me. Wood carving, shop sales or auction work, accounting, cutting or polishing precious stones, hairdressing. Cloth weaving by hand.
Well, that makes sense.
Damn it, I just finished building that loom in my spare bedroom. Things you are not allowed to make, including Thai musical instruments, Thai dolls, rice paper, lacquer, mattresses, alms bowls, silk products, knives, shoes, hats, or Buddha images.
Okay. Now I know.
I guess so. Civil engineering, can't do that. Architecture, can't do that. Which it was funny because it was a few months back when the Mahanakhon building opened, the brand new, Bangkok's most beautiful, brand newest building, was designed by a Dutch person,
Dutch, French,
or
Italian,
French,
certainly
something
not
like that.
Thai. Right.
A European.
Yes.
And there was some ultra nationalist guy who was raising a stink about it, saying how it should be illegal because he was not a Thai, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah,
Hey.
civil engineering and architecture, that's a no-no.
Building's not open yet. Just saying. It's not over to the public just yet. So maybe that guy was doing something.
It ain't over till the fat lady sings.
Or a building sinks into the swamp. Anyhow, continue.
Tour guide.
Yes.
Can't be a tour guide. Yeah. This is why whenever I show friends around, I have to be very ready if someone stops me and say, look, these are just my friends.
Exactly
No one's
right.
paying me to do this.
Yep.
Clerical or secretarial work. And last but not least, a lawyer. Can't do that. Yeah.
I don't know how to do any of those things, except bricklaying. And I never want to do that again. So yeah.
I could carve wood, not well, but I could carve wood. Here's a pointy stick. There you go.
I almost cut my thumb off carving wood once.
What's with you and your dad? Your dad teach you bad things with knives?
Yeah, pretty much. That was called growing up in Oklahoma.
Another interesting thing is that under current Thai laws, Thai people cannot legally change their gender, which is strange because Thailand is the world capital of sex reassignment surgery.
Yeah.
So no matter how you look, your legal documents identify you as the gender you were born as. And don't start writing to me saying people are born blah 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 blah.
You're labeled by your dangly bits. What you innie or an outie when you came out is what you're saying. Yes.
Yes, in this case, in Thailand, which is famously non-politically correct, you are either male or female, and that's it. So that's how.
But what about the third sex? That Katoy, they got an entire separate prison set up for Katoy, where they call the third sex. It just hasn't rolled down, you say, to the governmental organizations that assign that M or F or whatever the corresponding Thai equivalent letters are. Yeah. Right.
So I'm thinking there's probably a lot of very beautiful women in Thailand whose driving license says they are male.
Probably so.
But there's a lot of talk in recent years to change that law. And I think it's a good idea. I think it will eventually be changed. And speaking of this, at Smalls last night, I'm going to post this picture, actually. I took a picture of the bathroom. There's a single bathroom on the second floor, and it's got a male sign, a female sign, and a male-female sign.
Oh.
Like a mix.
Just have at it.
Good for them, yeah. Come in here and do your business. I don't care who you are or what you want.
Which is the way Thailand thinks of restrooms anyhow. I mean, it really it doesn't really matter. Just go ahead and pee wherever you want to pee. We'll talk about that next.
And last but not least, we talked about this on a previous bonus episode about a hotel in Bangkok that was being torn down because they broke this rule. And on sois or streets that are less than 10 meters wide, you are not allowed to build a structure taller than 8 stories tall.
And when you brought that up, I once again naturally thought you were
assumed I was a dirty, filthy liar. All right, go ahead.
Up again. But for my research here, I went to the top of my condo and I looked over the neighborhoods, because here in our side of the river in Thonburi, we are seeing an explosion, if you will, of development.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of eyeballing, and of course I wasn't measuring streets, but it's pretty clear that where the big construction is going on are wider streets. And if you look at the tiny little sois, like the one you live on, like on 17, they are all short, because I'm assuming that it's this law that's like, oh, sorry, street's too narrow, can't grow the gigantic beanstalk here.
Right. Yeah. And then there are certain streets and areas in Bangkok where you're like, wow, this is a very narrow soi and that's a very tall building. What's up? But usually those buildings have at least one exit onto a wider street somewhere or somehow. So that's how they get around that little law. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting thing. And I got to say, I think it's a pretty good idea, because the one thing they don't do when giant new buildings are built in Thailand is upgrade or adapt to the surrounding transportation infrastructure.
Oh God, no. You're not going to get a sewer connected to that building. So definitely not going to widen the streets. Are you nuts?
Right on.
Oh, goodness. Well, there is our list of crazy laws. Now, as Greg said at the beginning, we might have gotten some of the facts here not perfectly correct, and some of the subtle nuances we might have mischaracterized. So if you have any objections, remember, this is Greg's list, not mine. And his phone number is 08.
Yeah.
But by all
Don't
means,
forget, folks, when you start a podcast with a guy, you're in it for the long run, whether you like it or not.
let us know if we got anything wrong. If you got a few that you missed, you can leave us comments. There's lots of places you can do that. But before we go away, there's a couple things left. Don't leave us just yet, Greg. I do want to break now and get into everyone's favorite segment of the show. That is a little something called Love, Loathe, or Leave, where we look at one aspect of living here in the Big Mango, what it's like to be an expat, and find out if it's something that the two of us love about expat life, something we loathe about living in Bangkok, or if we hate it so much it's going to cause us to leave one of these days. My turn. And earlier you talked about bathrooms, so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the public restroom.
All right.
That is also doubles as any wall, bush, telephone pole, or slightly obscured from sort of kind of traffic that a moto taxi driver gets off and pisses on all the time.
So your topic is public bathrooms?
Yeah, but I mean, by that I mean peeing in public, and it's okay.
I see.
On walls, on poles,
yeah.
behind bushes. It's just, whatever. In America, that if you pee somewhere other than a bathroom and you are seen in public, that's public indecency, and you go to jail. Listen, there are some things about my country I'm not proud of. This will be one of them. And I am also not going to say I have never pulled over to the side of the road and peed. I've done it quite a lot. But here, it just seems to be, I'm peeing now. I hope you're okay with that. Just deal.
Yeah, you often see most often taxi drivers on the side of the road, no shame, no trying to cover, no hiding from anyone, just whizzing out in the open. A few years back, I used to ride my bicycle to work every day, and I used to ride right by the Royal Bangkok Sports Club. And I sent a tweet, and I said, "Hey, Tourism Authority of Thailand, if you want another attraction to add to your list, how about the wall that surrounds the Royal Bangkok Sports Club, which is now officially the world's largest urinal?"
Right.
But I hate it. I loathe it, man. I think it's gross. Call me old-fashioned, but I think if you're going to take a whiz out in the open, at least have a little bit of modesty. Like, find a corner, not just a flat wall facing a major road.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm going to go. I mean, I got to pick one, right? Love, loathe, or leave. I'm certainly not going to leave on it. And I guess, I have found myself in the situation enough to where I love the fact that if I have to pee, if I just simply have to pee, I can just do it anywhere. I love that. I love that aspect. I love that ability to where I don't have to fear legal repercussions if I gotta go, right? But I think I loathe it when, it's just on the right there. It just seems so weird to do it like, yep, I'm just going to turn around. No one pay attention to this guy, me pissing on this wall in full view of traffic. That's just it's just weird. It's just weird.
I remember reading a story a while ago about a certain bridge in some country. I had no idea if this is true, but so many people were peeing on the bridge, like the iron of the held up the bridge, that it was being disintegrated by the ammonia and had become structurally unstable.
Interesting. Uric acid, I guess, could eventually eat into that. You know what we should do? I thought about this right now. So this may be a terrible idea. Let's drive across the Sapantaksin Bridge.
Yeah.
And park on the side of the road, which is also okay.
Just parking.
And piss over the bridge onto the river. Can we do that?
As long as we make sure there are no boats coming, sure.
Yeah. Well, we should hit one of those big barges when they're going across. So like write our name on it as it goes by.
Yeah, right. Those guys have machetes and guns in a little cabin on the back there. They're going to be shooting at us.
True. Yeah. Somali pirates and idiots pissing on them from the bridge. All right. Well, listen, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, thank you, patrons. Thank you very much. We enjoy your continued support for all that you do. And if you're not yet one of our patrons, you should become that way, because occasionally Greg does some really funny stuff, right? He will say interesting, weird stories, which may not be true and certainly aren't true most of the time, I do believe. Is that correct, Greg?
I don't know what you're talking about. Every story that I tell about our patrons is 100% factual and accurate.
Yes.
To the best of my knowledge.
Of course it is. That would be patreon.com/Bangkok podcast to get signed up for that one. And before we leave you, I want to say two things. We had two very nice people say very nice things about us. 5-star reviews, 2 of them in one day, Gregory. 2 5-star reviews in one day.
That's a 10-star day.
It's a total 10-star day. You're exactly right. So Arjan Mark, which Arjan means teacher, by the way, says, "New Perspective" was the title of his 5-star review. After living here for 18 15 years. It was
Ooh, that's longer than me.
It was refreshing to get another perspective from these guys who are also from areas which I am from in North America, allowing me to appreciate what I've come accustomed to here in Thailand. Thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate the praise.
Cool.
And the next one came from Kirk on Kirk on Kirk on Kirk. I'm guessing his name is Kirk. Thank you, Kirk.
Or on.
Well, it could be on. Could be a mixture of Kirk and On. And they have 2 children that they decided to name after themselves, juniors.
Maybe.
He says, great witty banter. Yes, I would agree with that. He says, I thoroughly enjoy this podcast. I can definitely relate as a Thai person living in the United States. And he also goes on to say, these guys don't sugarcoat Thailand, nor should they. Keep up the great work, guys. Thank you, Kirk. We appreciate that.
I have a warm fuzzy right now.
Yeah. So
thanks, Kirk on Kirk on Kirk. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and think that your name is Kirkin.
Kirkin, thank you very much. Kirkin and Arjamok, thank you very much. Keep those reviews coming, people. If you listen to other podcasts, podcasters will beg you to leave reviews because they say it helps their Apple podcast rankings. And those podcasters are all wrong. It really, trust me, it does nothing for ratings and reviews. It doesn't help keep the show up on the charts any longer. It just is a nice, friendly thing when people actually do discover the show. If they see a lot of 5-star reviews or a lot of real positive reviews, it likely will cause them to subscribe. So doesn't influence our rankings whatsoever. So we're certainly not begging for that. We're begging because it just gives us warm fuzzies when people say nice things about us.
Yeah, it does boost our ego and swell our heads, which is always nice.
We are vain. Yes. I bet you think this podcast is about you. You're so vain. You're so vain.
All right, before this gets out of hand, thank you everyone for listening to the Bangkok podcast. If you have something on your mind or you just want to drop us a line to say hello, just leave a comment on bangkokpodcast.com, or you can reach out directly to me on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg.
Or send us a message on the Facebooks, the Twitters, or even Line, since you want to be all sorts of Thai. We're Bangkok Podcast just about everywhere. We're great at responding to those comments, those questions, and saying thank you profusely when you say nice things about us. So do all that. For Greg Jorgensen, I am Evo Terra. We'll be back here next week with more stories of our lives lived in the City of Angels, right here on the Bangkok Podcast. Chok krap. Just hit stop.
No, I'm going to keep recording.
Well, why the hell not? Sure. Let's let it go. Well, one of these days we should probably put something. I wonder how many people actually listen to the end to hear the little pieces,
That's a good question. Hey, if you can hear this now, listener, if you can hear me speaking right now, send us a little note. Say, hey, I heard you. I get it. I listened right to the end. It's like the Avengers, the end credits of the Marvel movie.
Oh, that's us. We are totally Marvel. We are. Don't sue us for me saying that, please.
I'm the Incredible Bulk. Who are you?
Wonder Woman? No, wait, that's DC. Sorry.
How dare you?